This is Sound Experience, the show that explores the vast world of audio production through the experiences of our guest and the ears of your host, mixing engineer and producer Tim Dolbear.
Hey, welcome to another edition of Sound Experience, powered by Intertalk Radio, the voice of the music biz. I am your host, Tim Dolbear, coming to you live from Eclectica Studios in Austin, Texas. And a big shout out to our sponsors, Blackbird Academy, hands-on training for studio and live sound. Source Connect by Source Element, which is the only sync-accurate HD video, audio, software, streaming, solution, creative kind of media thing, which has replaced the ISDN that's available. This is the best platform, and it allows me to connect in from the studio here in Austin to the radio station in San Diego. So that's a really cool, if you've never checked out Source Connect, I'll go off on a tangent. If you've never gone and checked out Source Connect by Source Element, it really is amazing. You can actually control the DAW at another studio in another state from where you're at through this app, at the same time having real HD audio and video transferring back and forth. So being able to do session work, editing, ADR, voiceover, all of that. It's just, it's an amazing piece of software. So check it out, Source Connect by Source Element. And so we have actually part 2 of our show with Craig Anderton today. We just had so much good stuff, so many good information, questions, things like that happening in the last segment, last show, that we decided to do a second show on it. And we probably will do a third and a fourth because there's just so many areas that we can cover. So if you did not hear the first show, I ask you please look back through our archives just a few weeks prior to the date for this show, and you will find it with Craig Anderton and myself talking. If you don't know who Craig Anderton is, he is an incredible resource for all of us in the pro audio industry. He has been a writer for basically every major magazine that's out there, as well as he's been the editor and has written for and worked with Harmony Central forever. For a long time, that is, harmonycentral.com. And he's also working with Gibson on some stuff. So he's a great musician, great studio cat, and full of information. So let's dive into picking his brain some more. So welcome back to the program, Mr. Craig Anderton.
How you doing?
How are you
Tim?
doing?
Can you hear me okay?
I hear you perfectly.
Fine. Great. So if you're gonna pick my brain, is it like thumb pick or flat pick? Because
I'm a flat pick. Flat pick. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Definitely. I also wanted to wish you a happy Swiss National Day, which is August 1st. So it's, if you're in Switzerland, you can watch the fireworks.
I didn't think you were going to remember. I had it in my notes to remind us. Yes, absolutely. That's cool.
Well, what do you want to talk about today?
Oh, there's so much, but I figured we'd dive into a really deep one that will be kind of a two-way. There's a bunch of stuff I want to share and a bunch of stuff that I'm going to get you to share out of this. But I want to start off by talking about studio workflow and working in the studio and different processes and workflows. Because obviously you've learned a lot of different workflows over the last 20, 25 years of working in the studio. And dealing with everything from plugins and transferring projects and stuff like that. So I thought we would dive into that type of things. Does that sound good?
Yeah, actually, I hate to say it, but it's been almost the last 50 years. So, I mean, I go back to like tape and azimuth alignment and all that stuff. So it's, so I actually, there's a lot we could talk about with workflow. The one thing I would say that's been a constant is that it changes all the time. You can't have a workflow and expect it to last for very long these days. As a matter of fact, the main thing that I'm into is I've really gotten good on using computers, and I do a workshop called Recording on the Fast Track, and it's for all the people who say, "Oh man, I could never write songs on a computer. I have to just pick up a guitar or a piano or something like that." But once you start getting good at the concept of you working with something nonlinear, all of a sudden the computer just makes it so much easier, because if you have an idea for like a cool melody line, just record it. If you have an idea for a chorus, just record it. You can always slip it back further on the timeline and fill stuff out. So my main thing about workflow these days is if I'm writing a song, to get everything down just as fast as humanly possible. Use placeholders for MIDI parts. There's a bass. Okay, fine. I won't agonize over the bass sound. I won't agonize over the kick drum sound. I'll get the song written. Then I'll go back and basically just redo it. So
there's a perfect point. I want to stop you there at that perfect point. Don't pause to do something like, I need to find the perfect bass sound for this. If you're writing a poem, you can't get halfway through it and then start searching through what font it looks good. It's ridiculous. Get it down. It doesn't have to be the final thing. Anyway, continue.
Well, that's the whole beauty of computers. And I'll tell you, Tim, there's a physiological reason why this is so. This isn't just a question of artistic decisions, but it's the way that our brain processes information. And I don't want to get into this too deeply, and it's kind of an oversimplification to present the brain as like having a left hemisphere and a right hemisphere.
Right.
But it is, the basic research about that won a Nobel Prize does have a lot of merit to it, because you can actually see which synapses of the brain fire under certain conditions. And basically the bottom line is that the right half of your brain is more like the creative side, and the left side is the more analytical side. So the way I explain it to people is the left side is MS-DOS and the right side is a Macintosh GUI, And the thing that's of importance to musicians, where you say, okay, well, you want to stay in your right brain and be creative and be thinking about colors and images and things like that, instead of the inches per second that the tape travels or the speed of your processor in gigahertz or whatever. But the really important point is that your brain likes to get stuck in one of those hemispheres. And the example I always give as proof is, like, you've got some great songwriting idea, the phone rings, now you have to switch hemispheres, and you can never get back to that riff again. So that's a big reason for just wanting to just move really fast and stay in that right-hand brain, so that you're in a constantly creative space and don't get derailed.
Absolutely. My wife, who's a full-time author, writes fiction and stuff. And when she teaches writing classes and people ask her about it, the main thing she always throws back at them is get it down. A lot of people will be typing and they'll see that they've made an error or a spelling error, and they'll stop and they go back to fix the spelling error, which jumps you out of the creative side into the analytical fix-it side. And your train of thought then and creativeness is completely stopped at that point.
Yeah, editing is a left brain activity, and so you really want to avoid that as much as possible. The other thing is that a lot of people sort of work on the assumption that, there must be something better just around the corner. Like I have one program that has 600 kick drums, I've never heard past like 20, because I'll just step through them and go, okay, 12 is fine, And the thing is that you always have to remember that nobody's going to, you're not going to put your song on for somebody. They're going to listen to it and go, oh, man, you should have chose kick drum number 572. Number 12 is just kind of lame. They're just not going to do that. All they care about is the emotional impact of the song and the vocals and the message, and whether you can relate to your audience. And all the rest of it is really just window dressing.
Exactly. One of the things I teach when I teach at various different schools is about workflow is you need to be able to, you could say, envision your studio and your equipment in your head easily. That if you have 600 kick drums to choose from, well, spend an hour and go through them and just delete all the ones that is like, no, that's too much like that. It's just, and find the stuff that you like, the stuff that sings to you. Same thing with plugins. If you have every single Waves plugin and every single UAD plugin, and that is just not a good workflow. You're never going to learn any of those plugins. So using them to the way they need to be done really isn't going to happen. Keep the ones that you use the best, your 2 favorite or 3 favorite EQs that you know like the back of your hands, and take the rest of them and either delete them or put them in a different folder so they're not in front of you. Because all it's going to do is trip you up having too many choices, especially when the choices, once you get into them, you don't necessarily know them or how to use them.
Well, and the other thing is that when you're making those decisions, are you choosing something better, or are you choosing something different? Because if it's just different, it really doesn't matter. I think we said last time I said something along the lines of there are 20 different ways to master something that are all valid, And it's the same thing with plugins. There's 20 different types of compressors you can do. I mean, well, I think one of the points you brought up is it's been great with plugins, and now so many of them have favorites folders or favorite markings or ways to tag them, tag them by session or tag them by preference or whatever. The other thing is, as I mentioned last time, I use Cakewalk Sonar, and they have a feature called a plugin manager, and you can exclude plugins, which means they don't show up in the program, but they're still installed and they're still there and are available for other programs as well. So, for example, something that I would use, only for mastering because it takes huge amounts of CPU isn't revealed in my normal Sonar workflow, but I do have another folder that contains all those kinds of things for when I use Sonar for mastering. So I'm not distracted by having to wade through a bazillion plugins. I have the plugins that are there that, the right tool for the right job kind of thing.
Exactly. Yep. You got to, and again, you got to know what each one does and its strengths and its weakness, so you know where it's going to sit in your palette, so you pull it out at the right time and use it for the right thing. And the more that you dive into a product and how it works and its ins and outs and its quirkinesses, the more that's power. That's the knowledge is power part. And you can't get that if you have 75 different EQs. You're just not going to be verse in all of them. They're just going to sit there, take up space in your mind, and take away from the ultimate production. Okay, we're coming up on the first break. We'll be right back in a few minutes talking with Craig Anderton. This is Sound Experience on Intertalk Radio. We will be back in a couple minutes.
Are you serious about your music? Are you ready to run with the big dogs? The experts at Pitbull Audio have the gear to get you into the game. From leading manufacturers like Mesa Boogie, Fender, Pioneer, and American Audio. To sound your best, you need the best. Pitbull Audio can deliver in rehearsal, on stage, and into the big time. Dropping beats, shredding guitar, or making the crowd roar. Whatever you dream, Pitbull Audio can help make it happen. We are Pitbull Audio. We want you to play it loud. PitbullAudio.com.
Hi, this is Tim Dolbear, host of Sound Experience here on Intertalk Radio. And Source Connect by Source Element is the essential tool that we use to link between my studio in Austin, Texas, and the WS radio station in San Diego. Now, with Source Connect, not only can we communicate in real time and with HD audio, but it's synced up and is of a high enough quality that I can use it for real-time ADR work, remote recording, and overdubbing, and it even allows me to remotely control a DAW. Source Connect by Source Element, affordable, high-quality audio and video connection over the internet for all of your production needs.
Have you ever wondered what it's like to record on a Grammy award-winning album? Have you ever wondered what it's like to play in front of a stadium crowd? Have you ever wondered what it's like to be on a world tour? I'm Jackie Bertoni, and I've played with the who's who in the music industry, and I've toured the world. Come join my world, Behind the Velvet Rope, and get into the groove on Jackie's Groove. Live 2 p.m. Mondays and available 24/7 on jackiesgroove.com.
Hi, I'm Tim Dolbear, the host of Sound Experience on Intertalk Radio. Each week, I talk with top professional audio engineers, producers, musicians, and the manufacturers that make the tools that we use in the studio each and every day. From capturing the perfect take to mastering your final release, and the tools and how the pros use them, we are going to dive deep into their process and learn from their experience. I look forward to you joining us each week on Sound Experience with me, your host, Tim Dolbear.
Hey, it's Catherine from Listen Local Radio. Moe's Guitars has proudly served the San Diego music community since 1975. Specializing in guitars, basses, mandolins, banjos, and ukuleles, they buy, sell, trade, and consign. If you're looking for lessons, repairs, accessories, and cool gear, you found the right place. Located in downtown La Mesa Village, stop by and check out their digs or visit moesguitars.com or their Facebook page. mozeguitars.com, 619-698-1185.
Hi, this is Tim Dolbear from Eclectica Studios. I'm a full-time mixing and recording engineer. I work with Grammy winners, labels, and indie artists, using state-of-the-art digital mixing and restoration tools and the very best in analog gear. Really, though, it's my ability to bring tracks to life and fulfill your vision for your music. This has made me sought after by producers and artists worldwide. So spend your time working on music and not chasing a mix down a rabbit hole. Go to timdolbear.com and check out our free one-song mix offer.
This is Sound Experience, the show that explores the vast world of audio production through the experiences of our guest and the ears of your host, mixing engineer and producer Tim Dolbear.
Hey, welcome back to Sound Experience. We are talking with Craig Anderton. Do you have any other thoughts about plugins before we move on to the next thing?
Yeah, but we can say that's parts 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. Actually, there are two comments I want to make. One is I see a lot of people, like I see a lot of forum threads, like which EQ is the best, which EQ should I use and all that. And I spend a lot of time on the Cakewalk forums, obviously. And Sonar has this plugin called the Quad Curve EQ, and the reason why it's called that is because it emulates 4 different types of EQ curves. And, like a couple are like SSLs, and there's like a Pultec type thing, and there's a more surgical one or whatever. So I see these people saying, oh, I like this EQ or I like that EQ. And it's like, well, if they would learn what the different curves did in the quad curve, they would probably find that it would do a lot of what they did. And then they could concentrate on EQs like, the Fab filter that really do something different, or Fry Realm or stuff like that. So what you're saying about learning stuff is really important, because once you've learned what something can do, not only do you know what its strengths are, but now you know what its limitations are. So when you're looking for something to fill that limitation, you've defined what you need. So, both elements are important. The other thing I wanted to comment on was your ad, because there's something you said which I think needs to bear repeating. That you talk, I don't remember the exact quote, but it's something along the lines of how when you do stuff, it's designed with the artist in mind, or I forget exactly how you phrased it, but you know what I'm talking about?
I think so.
And, I think that's a really important consideration. I do a lot of mastering. I've done a lot of mixing. If you listen to what I do, there's no, like, Craig Anderton sound, quote, unquote, because there can't be. Because the object isn't to place my subjective values on what the artist is doing. The object is to take what the artist really wants to do, their vision for what they want to do, and implement it as fully as possible, and if possible, amplify it along the way based on your expertise. So, it's like, I know that for a while there in the recording world was a fad where there'd be particular producers who had a particular sound, but I'm really kind of dead set against that concept. I think really everything should serve the artist,
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that's one thing that I've really fought for so long, and that's why the studio was called Eclectica Studios, is because one minute I'm doing a mariachi band and the next minute I'm doing a death metal band. And it's not about Tim. It's about the artist. And you have to always remember, when you get into any situation, when you work at a studio, whether you're a producer, an engineer, whatever it is, that it's a team. You guys are then, as soon as I sign on to mix someone's album, I'm part of their team, and it's my job to do everything I possibly can to showcase and bring out and exaggerate their artistry. Make it, it's all about them. I'm shining the spotlight on them, not on me, and that's the goal, and that's the important part, because that's the art.
Yep, and it's also up to the artist to give you the latitude to do that in the best way that she sees fit. And if it doesn't work, okay, you can always redo it, but the best experiences that I've had is when someone put their trust in me and said, okay, listen, here's the direction I want to go in, but do your thing. And then you really do have that kind of team thing you're talking about. And by the way, you mentioned in mariachi or death metal. I mean, one of the reasons I've been successful at what I do is because I'm able to take the skills I learned in one medium and translate them to another. Like, I use a lot of DJ thinking in my rock mixes these days. I drop things out, and it makes a huge difference. And I had a string of new age projects that I did in the 80s that were quite successful. And the reason why was because it was a lot of acoustic artists who were used to acoustic techniques, and then they'd incorporate a synthesizer, and they were lost, and they didn't know how to really deal with electronic instruments. So fortunately, I had a whole background in electronics, and I was able to bring forth what they wanted with the electronics, but I also had a background in classical music, and so I knew how to record acoustic instruments, and it was a really good combination. So the more things you can do, the better. And the more types of music that you can appreciate, I don't mean you, but I mean the more types of music people can appreciate, the more they can learn about things to apply to any kind of music that they do. It really pays to have an open mind in that respect.
Oh, my dad used to say when I was studying guitar, at age 5, I started playing guitar, and by the time I hit like my teenage years, early teenage years, before I went to MI, he made this great comment to me. He goes, "You're no longer turning into a guitar player, you're turning into a musician." And that's the same thing. Yeah, same thing with being in the studio is, okay, you need to become a musician, which means everything, all styles. It's music. You need to be able to listen to any type of music given to you and find the art in it, find the love in it, find the person's heart. If it came from someone's heart that they put it down that way, you have to honor that, and you have to be able to understand it and define it and work with it in order to do this type of job. Today I mixed a song from a band in Chicago. It's kind of a Hootie and the Blowfish. Last week, I started the week mixing a rockabilly, psychobilly type band, and by the end of the week, I was mixing 4 songs off of a Hare Krishna CD that is all chants, piano, harmonium, sitar, and tabla. And so, but you have to be able to listen to it and you have to be able to fall in love with it, period.
Oh man, I want to get your master tapes. I could do some mashups that would be astonishing. I'll tell you. I think the Hare Krishna death metal mariachi band would be something of note. You know, and by the way, along the same lines, I think it's really good to learn more than one instrument. It doesn't mean you have to be a virtuoso at it. But I've doubled on keyboards for a long time. I'm not a great keyboard player, but what it's done for my guitar playing is huge. The other thing is I've learned how to play bass, and I don't mean play bass like a guitar. I mean understanding the bass is part of the rhythm section, and I've played with drummers, and it's really plugged me into what that whole rhythm type of thing is about, which again is translated into my guitar experience. And would I play bass out with like a band and replace their star bass player? No, I wouldn't. I mean, I could if he got sick or something like that. But what it taught me about rhythm and guitars was just huge, So yeah, again, versatility, like you said, be a musician. Don't just be an instrumentalist.
Absolutely. Anyone who sat through my class at Blackbird, any students that happen to be listening, they'll recognize this part. I always tell them, if you're going to work in the studio, learn how to play every single instrument you can get your hands on. And that doesn't mean you need to be a virtuoso at each one. But you know how much easier it is to mic up and place into a mix an instrument that you understand how the sound comes out of and the sound is made? It makes all the difference in the world. And then also, miking up something. If you don't know how an actual Paraguayan harp makes its sound, because you haven't sat there and plucked one and kind of experimented with it, it's a lot harder to try to mic it up at that point.
Hey, well, since you're talking miking, you want a real quick tip?
Sure.
Okay, so I've done a lot of classical guitar recording in my life, and one of them was a lady. Unfortunately, she passed away a few years ago, named Linda Cohen, and she played very delicately and not very loud. And this was back in the days of tape and preamps and hiss and all that stuff. And using 2 mics on her just didn't work. Aside from the phase things and the having to use 2 preamps and all that, it was just always a bear. And so what I ended up doing was taking one mic, like a really nice condenser mic, and finding the sweet spot to record her guitar. And so there were no phase issues. I was able to pick up the whole thing. But of course, now there wasn't a stereo image either, which was kind of a drag. But I found out with guitar what I could do was I could take that one signal, split it into 3 channels, take a low-pass filter, put it in the left channel, a high-pass filter, put it in the right channel, and bring the rest of the mids up the middle. And what it ended up doing was creating this stereo image that really sounded like she was in the living room with you, because you could actually sort of hear the body resonance on the left and the fingers squeaking against the neck on the right. So it ended up with this remarkably phase coherent, strong classical guitar sound with a really good stereo image. So that's a fun tip. It's really served me well. Now I've tried it with other instruments and it just doesn't seem to work. I mean, I've tried it with keyboards and things, but with classical guitar, man, it is just fantastic. And it also works very well with acoustic guitar. So something to consider.
That is cool. That is cool. I instantly conjured up the image of the guitar player being like a drummer saying, well, I like the hi-hat on the left. You got to do it from the drummer's perspective. So I'm picturing the guitar player saying, can you swap it around so it's in my perspective?
So which do you use? Do you use performance or audience perspective?
Audience. Yeah, I always use audience. Yeah. And
it's
also,
really
I really go after drum kits as it's a single instrument, so I don't have a wide pan. I don't like having toms go do-do-do-do-do-do and have it pan from one ear to the other, unless it's a special effect. But just in a song, I'm pretty tight with the panning on it, so it's a single instrument kind of thing.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think that's not the way people hear drums. You know, I mean, if they're listening to drums, I mean, to me, the live performance is still what it's all about, you know. Now, obviously there are exceptions, experimental electronic music where sounds are flying around your head. I mean, that's the intention. That's fine. But if I'm hearing like rock music or something like that, I want it to sound at least vaguely coherent. I mean, that's why I don't use like 45 different reverbs. You know, I don't put a different reverb on the snare and one on the vocal and one on the guitar or anything like that. But I'll tell you, I have to tell you, I'm really bad that way because I pretty much do drums from the drummer perspective. And I've often thought, man, I should get the right enough channels before I release anything. But every now and then I catch myself and go, oh, no, hi-hat's got to be on the left.
Well, let's dive right back into that after this break, and we'll dive right back into that. This is Sound Experience with Tim Dolbear. We'll be right back. Hi, I'm Tim Dolbear, the host of Sound Experience on Intertalk Radio. Each week, I talk with top professional audio engineers, producers, musicians, and the manufacturers that make the tools that we use in the studio each and every day. From capturing the perfect take to mastering your final release, and the tools and how the pros use them, we are going to dive deep into their process and learn from their experience. I look forward to you joining us each week on Sound Experience with me, your host, Tim Dolbear.
Hey, it's Catherine from Listen Local Radio. Moe's Guitars has proudly served the San Diego music community since 1975. Specializing in guitars, basses, mandolins, banjos, and ukuleles, they buy, sell, trade, and consign. If you're looking for lessons, repairs, accessories, and cool gear, you found the right place. Located in downtown La Mesa Village, stop by and check out their digs or visit moesguitars.com or their Facebook page. mozeguitars.com, 619-698-1185.
Hi, this is Tim Dolbear, host of Sound Experience here on Intertalk Radio. And Source Connect by Source Element is the essential tool that we use to link between my studio in Austin, Texas, and the WS radio station in San Diego. Now, with Source Connect, not only can we communicate in real time and with HD audio, but it's synced up and is of a high enough quality that I can use it for real-time ADR work, remote recording, and overdubbing, and it even allows me to remotely control a DAW. Source Connect by Source Element, affordable, high-quality audio and video connection over the internet for all of your production needs.
Have you ever wondered what it's like to record on a Grammy award-winning album? Have you ever wondered what it's like to play in front of a stadium crowd? Have you ever wondered what it's like to be on a world tour? I'm Jackie Bertoni, and I've played with the who's who in the music industry, and I've toured the world. Come join my world, behind the velvet rope, and get into the groove on Jackie's Groove. Live 2 p.m. Mondays and available 24/7 on jackiesgroove.com.
Are you serious about your music? Are you ready to run with the big dogs? The experts at Pitbull Audio have the gear to get you into the game. From leading manufacturers like Mesa Boogie, Fender, Pioneer, and American Audio. To sound your best, you need the best. Pitbull Audio can deliver in rehearsal, on stage, and into the big time. Dropping beats, shredding guitar, or making the crowd roar. Whatever you dream, Pitbull Audio can help make it happen. We are Pitbull Audio. We want you to play it loud. PitbullAudio.com.
Hi, this is Tim Dolbear from Eclectica Studios. I'm a full-time mixing and recording engineer. I work with Grammy winners, labels, and indie artists, using state-of-the-art digital mixing and restoration tools and the very best in analog gear. Really, though, it's my ability to bring tracks to life and fulfill your vision for your music. This has made me sought after by producers and artists worldwide. So spend your time working on music and not chasing a mix down a rabbit hole. Go to timdolbear.com and check out our free one-song mix offer.
This is Sound Experience, the show that explores the vast world of audio production through the experiences of our guest and the ears of your host, mixing engineer and producer Tim Dolbear.
Hey, welcome back to Sound Experience, the second half of the show. And I forgot at the top of the hour to give a kind of a reminder of who's coming up next week. Next week we have Eric Zobler on, who is a producer, engineer, and comedian extraordinaire. He's worked with Jeffrey Osborne, George Duke, Miles Davis, Anita Baker, so many more. Plus, he's just been a great guy, great friend of mine, and I really think you're going to enjoy the show. So any questions or anything for him, just email me or contact me through Facebook, and we'll get the questions answered by him. But he is just a powerhouse, just fantastic to have. So that's next week on Sound Experience. So back to what we're talking about. With the drumming panning thing, what about with piano? Because I tend to take piano sample libraries, not the real pianos, but 99% of the stuff that comes in here is sample libraries, and I narrow them big time. In every one of my mixes that you'll find everywhere, the piano, unless it's a solo piano part, is narrowed big time, halfway to mono, you could say.
Yeah, I'm not a big fan of huge stereo spreads, and I'm not a back to mono guy either. But again,
right.
It's just like what would this sound like live? You know, what would the listener experience with it? And like going back to the classical guitar example, the way that even though it's a big stereo image, it's what a guitar sounds like. You know, when you're sitting, it sounded very much like Linda was sitting on a couch and in your living room and you were in front of her, you know. So to me, that passes the reality test. Although there are, rules are also made to be broken. I did this harpsichord recording with Kathleen McIntosh and did close miking of the harpsichord. And it's not the way you're supposed to do harpsichords, but man, it just sounded great. It just sounded great. I had I had room mics in there as well. But she just flipped out because she said, man, this is exactly what a harpsichord sounds like when you're playing it as opposed to sitting in an audience. And I said, well, in that case, let's make the imaging so that it's as if you were playing the harpsichord. And she was like totally cool with that. And one of the advantages, of course, is that I was recording it digitally, so I could get away with the close miking because the big problem with harpsichords is picking up the mechanical sounds, the releases, things like that. But during the quiet passages, I was actually able to go in and do surgery on the waveform to bring down some of the mechanical noises. So we had the benefits of the close miking without having the clunks and things like that. So there's a situation where the player perspective was what the artist wanted. She was like, I want people to know what it sounds like to sit down and play a harpsichord. Okay, cool. I'm down with that. So I think it depends. And as far as the narrowing of images and things like that, these days more and more, I'm really pretty much doing everything in stereo. So it's more of a balanced situation than a panning situation, and that has its own advantages and limitations, but one of them is it almost makes it impossible to have those point source of sound issues with things that are panned extremely wide. So I'm not a fan of it either. Is basically I agree with you on that. We should disagree on something so we can generate some controversy here. But I'm sorry.
Well,
I'm sorry. I agree.
But that's good, because then if anyone's listening to us that's like, well, I'm not sure about this. Okay, those two guys babbling away on the radio agree on this, so maybe there's something to it, as opposed to, they're both arguing about it, so it could be either way. So
yeah, I know what you're saying. I've seen those panel discussions where the so-called golden ears get together and it's like they don't agree about anything. And it's like, well, okay, but I guess whatever I'm doing is okay.
Exactly. I learned nothing from that. Yep. Well, you mentioned sample libraries, and one of the things that I've had many people ask me about is what drum sample libraries I use, and I actually use one that's made from the studio kit here at Eclectica Studio, so I use my own. And the reason why I've never bought any, and like you had mentioned, the 600 different kick drums available in one sample library, is the people who make sample libraries have to make it so when you hit a kick sample, for instance, we'll use kick, that it sounds awesome. Boom, kick. It's awesome. It's exactly how I hear it on a record. You know, Tommy Lee's kick drum sound. That's it. But then you load it into your song. You try mixing with it, and it doesn't. It just sounds horrible. It doesn't sound like what you're expecting it to. It doesn't work. You got to remember, in order to sell these sample libraries, they need the kick drum to sound fantastic by itself. But that is not how I would EQ it in a mix to get the end result that you would initially had wanted. So that's always a challenge with sample libraries, is trying to find ones that work actually in the mix and aren't just made to sound good when you're sampling them to whether or not you're going to buy it. That's a challenge.
Well, it's the same challenge as if you go out and buy a piece of meat, you can cook it the way you want, but when you get it at the restaurant, it's whatever they think you want, you know? So it's like, you know, maybe it'll be good, maybe it won't. Maybe it'll have way too much salt, you know?
Right.
But, you know, the thing, sample libraries, I mean, it's an interesting topic in itself. On the Never Ending CD that I'm just finishing mastering, I'm halfway through mastering it now. All the drum parts are from the Discrete Drums loop libraries, which are these were recorded with Chris McHugh and Greg Morrow, and they're all audio. They're not samples, you know. They do include hits of individual drums, so if you want to add an extra snare someplace or whatever, you can do that, and it's not too out of place. But the thing I love about the Discrete Drum libraries is they're just recorded very, very plain. And I think part of that is why they weren't hugely successful, is because people would put them on and go, oh, well, this doesn't sound like it's exploding out of the speakers. But the thing is that it gave me the freedom to EQ and modify those parts and spread them really however I wanted. And as a result, I mean, it sounds like a real drummer is playing on all these cuts. As a matter of fact, every drummer I've played it for just always assumes it's a real drummer because they know what real drums sound like. So they're like, wow, hey, you used a drummer instead of a machine. Cool going, Craig. It's like, well, actually, no, I used loops, you know. But they really, I mean, they sound really fantastic. There's also there's an instrument in Sonar called Session Drummer, which makes it really easy to load in my own samples. And there are two songs that I did using Session Drummer, but they were from the hits from the Discrete Drums library. So even though the songs were more electronic, they were thematically consistent with the other songs that use the audio loops. They didn't sound like a fish out of water type situation. Right. On the other hand, for the bass, I spent a lot of time sampling 3 different Gibson basses. I mean, I think I told you last time, I'm like 300 feet from the world's greatest lending library for guitar players ever, you know. So I borrowed a Les Paul bass, a Midtown bass, and an EB5, and I just sampled the living daylights out of them, all the different positions of the pickups and things like that, but not multi-sampled. What I did was I took the individual samples and I put them into Rapture Pro, which is another, you know, cakewalk instrument, and I tied all the parameters to things that would affect the sound the way a real bass player would affect it. Like if you hit it harder, it gets brighter, and it's, you know, the pitch changes a little bit at the beginning and it settles back down. You know, all those kinds of things. So it was this very strange hybrid of sampled sound, but really placed in a synthesizer context so that there was a lot of expressiveness to it, and also you avoided, to me, what sounds very phony is when a multi-sample switches from one sample to the next. You know, and unless you're going to do like 5 billion samples. Now, there are some exceptions to that. I think the Native Instruments Rickenbacker bass, for example, does a really great job with contact. If you want to sound like a Rickenbacker bass, man, it sounds like a Rickenbacker bass, you know. But I didn't want to sound like somebody else's bass. I wanted a bass part. And so I started off playing quite a few of the bass parts myself. But then as I got into doing the keyboard bass parts more and more, I was like, you know, this is actually, I like this better. It's more consistent. It really fills out the low end. I got the levels right. You know, they're kind of like produced. So there's kind of a time and place for everything. You know, even guitar samples. I mean, you'll be shocked at this, but I came up with a thing called a chord library. And what it is in the browser, I have samples of major, minor, seventh, diminished, 13th, added ninth chord, just a chord that rings out. And when I'm writing a song, I'll bring the chord in and I'll try different chord combinations and things like that to see how the progression works out. Because it inspires me to try chords I wouldn't normally do. It's like, okay, what chord comes next? Oh, let's try this. So I shove it in there and go, yeah, that's I would never have thought of doing that, but it's actually kind of cool, right? So I assembled the song with this, and I put it through an amp sim, and then when it came time to mix, I was like, this does what I needed to do. I mean, I don't really need to play the guitar part. I have a guitar part. It sounds fine in the context of the song, and so I just let it go. And I think that's an important thing to consider. We were talking before about moving fast, in the songwriting and recording process. Right. But I think you also have to not make change for the sake of making change. If something works, leave it alone. The other feature I use a lot in Sonar, there's a thing called mix recall, where you can it's like the old digital consoles where you could store a mix in the project or whatever. And a lot of times I've found that the early mixes, because I wasn't paying attention and I was just like moving things with abandon, really had a lot of elements that I wanted to keep in later mixes. If I refined it too much, it just this is like an old story about over perfecting something to where it doesn't sound good or whatever. But it was more like when I was doing the mix originally. Again, I was thinking more like the DJ stuff that I do, and it became more like a performance. Fader slamming and pulling things down and soloing and muting, and it was like a performance on the mixing board, and that actually ended up being more satisfying in a lot of ways.
I totally have lived that too. Okay, on a break. We'll be right back in 2 minutes. This is Sound Experience on Intertalk Radio. We'll be right back.
Are you serious about your music? Are you ready to run with the big dogs? The experts at Pitbull Audio have the gear to get you into the game. From leading manufacturers like Mesa Boogie, Fender, Pioneer, and American Audio. To sound your best, you need the best. Pitbull Audio can deliver in rehearsal, on stage, and into the big time. Dropping beats, shredding guitar, or making the crowd roar. Whatever you dream, Pitbull Audio can help make it happen. We are Pitbull Audio. We want you to play it loud. PitbullAudio.com.
Have you ever wondered what it's like to record on a Grammy award-winning album? Have you ever wondered what it's like to play in front of a stadium crowd? Have you ever wondered what it's like to be on a world tour? I'm Jackie Bertoni, and I've played with the who's who in the music industry, and I've toured the world. Come join my world, Behind the Velvet Rope, and get into the groove on Jackie's Groove. Live 2 p.m. Mondays and available 24/7 on jackiesgroove.com.
Hi, this is Tim Dolbear, host of Sound Experience here on Intertalk Radio. And Source Connect by Source Element is the essential tool that we use to link between my studio in Austin, Texas, and the WS radio station in San Diego. Now, with Source Connect, not only can we communicate in real time and with HD audio, but it's synced up and is of a high enough quality that I can use it for real-time ADR work, remote recording, and overdubbing, and it even allows me to remotely control a DAW. Source Connect by Source Element. Affordable, high-quality audio and video connection over the internet for all of your production needs.
Has your business been appified? Are you tired of doing marketing that doesn't deliver results? Mobile apps build loyalty and quality retention. Your app from UPG Mobile puts your business on their mind and at their fingertips. UPG Mobile will give you a custom app highlighting how you are unique, targeting your message, and improving your open rates. Appify your business and amplify your presence with your customers at upgmobilemarketinggroup.com.
Hey, it's Catherine from Listen Local Radio. Moe's Guitars has proudly served the San Diego music community since 1975. Specializing in guitars, basses, mandolins, banjos, and ukuleles, they buy, sell, trade, and consign. If you're looking for lessons, repairs, accessories, and cool gear, you found the right place. Located in downtown La Mesa Village, stop by and check out their digs or visit moesguitars.com or their Facebook page, mozeguitars.com. 619-698-1185.
Hi, I'm Tim Dolbear, the host of Sound Experience on Intertalk Radio. Each week, I talk with top professional audio engineers, producers, musicians, and the manufacturers that make the tools that we use in the studio each and every day. From capturing the perfect take to mastering your final release, and the tools and how the pros use them, we are going to dive deep into their process and learn from their experience. I look forward to you joining us each week on Sound Experience with me, your host, Tim Dolbear.
This is Sound Experience, the show that explores the vast world of audio production through the experiences of our guest and the ears of your host, mixing engineer and producer Tim Dolbear.
Hey, welcome back to the last segment of Sound Experience, powered by Intertalk Radio, your voice of the music biz. Yeah, we're talking about overworking a mix, overworking anything, and it's kind of like cooking. There's a lot of things where if you're overworking it, you will destroy it. And in fact, that's where my phrase, chasing a mix down a rabbit hole. I noticed that when I get in projects for mastering, because I do some mastering, if the EQ is way off on the project, way off on the songs, and I start working on it, because it's so far off, I have to make big moves and big chops right away, and then put it aside and come back to it a half hour, an hour later, and then bring it up fresh. If I stay there and just pound on getting the frequencies and balanced and everything the way I think it should be for 5, 10, 15, 20 minutes, by the end of that, my EQ curve is actually off from what it should be because my brain has slowly adjusted to this off-sounding recording. And as I've overworked it, my brain has changed its focus from what it should be to what I'm actually hearing. Does that make sense? And so taking it in smaller chunks keeps you from chasing it down a rabbit hole and actually ending up with something worse. Well, it's the same thing that Craig's saying as far as you work on mixes, your focal point changes towards what's being worked on in the mix, and you can lose sight very easily of the original art, the original things that you were going after and maybe had wanted to feature in the begin with. Does that kind of sum it up for you?
Yeah, here we go again. Yeah, I agree, absolutely. As a matter of fact, one of the things, as a corollary to that, one of the things I advise people who are getting into mastering or mixing for the first time, who are new at it, I tell them about what I call the rule of half. And what it means is if you think that something needs to go up 2 dB, bring it back to 1 dB, because your ear, like you're saying, your ear acclimates. Your ear works in combination with your brain, and you'll get false readings when something's way off like that. I find it so advantageous. I mean, one of the luxuries of a home studio, I find it so advantageous to be able to mix something and come back to it like 2-3 weeks later after having traveled someplace or whatever. And I'll often have one of those "what was I thinking" moments on some of the cuts, and then I'll bring it back to sanity and go, yeah, okay, that's the way I want it to be. But the errors, as you point out, and this is something that I'm really glad you emphasized, the errors come because if you do it for too long, your brain compensates for what your ears are hearing, and so you're not really hearing what's actually happening.
Yeah, hearing and your brain and how it interprets. Yeah, I guess that's the word. Whatever. It's and how it hears, how your brain interprets what's coming into your ears and everything, is absolutely a fascinating, amazing study. That if you're an audio engineer and you've never spent some time kind of learning about how that works, do it. Serves yourself well. A basic point, a good example would be how amazing your brain is at twisting and changing things. Is if you listen to an old clock radio that has a little 2-inch speaker on it, and you're listening to music on it, there's nothing coming out of that speaker below, 200-300 hertz, yet your brain will interpret all of the harmonics that are happening from 200 or 300 hertz up and rebuild the fundamental tone that is happening an octave, 2 octaves below that, that's not actually coming out of the speaker, to where you actually hear, you could say, or feel like you're hearing the actual fundamental tones, the original notes that are down there, even though they aren't actually coming out of the speaker. Your brain is actually putting that together so you're hearing it. It's just amazing.
And listening is something also that you become an experienced listener, quote unquote. Every now and then I'll hear like a song, an oldie that's played on some station, and it's a song that I remember from when I was a kid or whatever, but I remember it very differently. You know, I listen to it now, and it's like, oh my gosh, they mixed the piano. I can't believe how they mixed the piano on that thing. Well, I wasn't thinking about that when I was 12 years old.
Right.
I wasn't thinking how they mixed the piano. Is there too much reverb on the voice? Or, wow, what a great performance or whatever. But having spent so many years doing that, now I hear it that way. You know, and so... I think, for example, I think it's really good to calibrate your ears periodically by listening to acoustic things, by going to a symphony hall, listening to an orchestra, all those things. And I also, if I can get on a soapbox for a bit of a second, it's really important to protect your hearing. And so most people go, oh, I protect my hearing. You know, when I go to loud concerts, I use earplugs. Okay, great. But there are a lot of dangers to your hearing, like airplanes. Airplanes have a long, sustained noise. And remember, it's the continuous nature of noise that causes the damage, not the occasional impulses. And so I always wear, I always wear hearing protection when I'm on airplanes, but I don't wear the kind that make a complete seal with my ear, because if there's a sudden loss of cabin air pressure, you can pop your eardrums. So something like earbuds, for example, are the kind that go into your ears, but which nonetheless have space for air. Those are excellent. When I walk around New York City, I mean, you never know when there's going to be a siren coming by or jackhammers or things like that, so I often wear hearing protection there. And I always wore it when I was on stage. Of course, I spring to the kind that don't screw up with the response too much. And you do need to get your hearing checked by an audiologist. I had a friend, a very talented piano player, did a lot of driving, had the window open, and the wind rustling past his ear for years actually was causing damage. And they were able to arrest the damage, but if he hadn't gone to the House Ear Institute, he never would have known it was happening. He would be deaf in one ear now. So this is really important. And, even at my age, I'm supposed to have my hearing be way down, but I have it tested, and I can still hear 13 kHz, which is pretty good when you're 67, So it pays off. It's worth doing. It's really worth taking care of your hearing. I took care of my hearing from the minute I started going on stage. And, there was one time I was over in Germany, and, the music's really loud in the clubs, right? This was like, 4,000 Germans whacked ecstasy or whatever. And it was loud, loud, loud. And I put in earplugs, and everybody looked at me like, well, that's not very macho, But I don't care about being macho, having my hearing. The next year when I went back, everybody was wearing earplugs. So,
that's cool. I always wear earplugs. Absolutely. I even wear earplugs at church because we can be kind of lively there, and it's definitely can be loud. And I wear earplugs at church everywhere. You just have to, like you say, you have to protect, which I've always done, but I have to admit, I've never gone to get my ears checked. So maybe it's time to do that. So put that on the list of my...
what frequency response is and all that. I was really happy to find out I did not have that 3.5 kHz dip that most engineers have.
Don't even know about that, so I'm going to learn about that.
It's really, it's an investment well worth doing.
Yeah. I think probably if we all go for our yearly checkups for everything else to make sure maintenance is staying up good, our what do we get now through Obamacare where it's all paid for? Our I can't think of the word, where everything's free. You get a free checkup kind of stuff. That all happens for everybody now on their insurance. But having when you do that, when you go in for your annual, I guess it would be time to go in for your ears also. Even though it's probably extra money, it's worth it. If this is what you do for a living, invest in it. So, and certainly protect yourself when you're out and about. All you need is to be at one club where you're thinking it's not that loud and have somebody walk over and shout in your ear and, you've done permanent damage, or they have to you. So always protect yourself. Okay, well, we're out of time. Thank you so much for being on the program again. Yeah.
We never got half the stuff we wanted to get to.
We never even got through the list. We emailed back and forth this morning. So, wow, okay. We'll have to figure out a part 3 because there's so much to talk about. It's very, very, very cool. I love having you on the show, and the response has been tremendous with it, too. So thank you so much for making time for us today.
Oh, it's a real pleasure, Tim. I mean, I always like talking with you about this stuff, and I like your insights, and it's I like a lot of what you're saying, so it's good to be able to, say, listen to this guy. That makes sense.
That's so cool. That really means a lot. It really does. As you know, I started writing and everything because of you and reading your stuff, and you've been a big influence to me, so thank you so much. All right. Well, get in contact with us at intertalkradio.com/sound experience. You're probably there already. Also, you can get in contact with me at timdolbear.com or just Google me and you'll find me. This has been Sound Experience. I'm Tim Dolbear signing off from Eclectica Studios. Now, go make some music. Hi, this is Tim Dolbear, host of Sound Experience here on Intertalk Radio. And Source Connect by Source Element is the essential tool that we use to link between my studio in Austin, Texas, and the WS radio station in San Diego. Now, with Source Connect, not only can we communicate in real time and with HD audio, but it's synced up and is of a high enough quality that I can use it for real-time ADR work, remote recording, and overdubbing, and it even allows me to remotely control a DAW. Source Connect by Source Element, affordable, high-quality audio and video connection over the internet for all of your production needs.
Are you serious about your music? Are you ready to run with the big dogs? The experts at Pitbull Audio have the gear to get you into the game. From leading manufacturers like Mesa Boogie, Fender, Pioneer, and American Audio. To sound your best, you need the best. Pitbull Audio can deliver in rehearsal, on stage, and into the big time. Dropping beats, shredding guitar, or making the crowd roar. Whatever you dream, Pitbull Audio can help make it happen. We are Pitbull Audio. We want you to play it loud. PitbullAudio.com.
Hi, this is Tim Dolbear from Eclectica Studios. I'm a full-time mixing and recording engineer. I work with Grammy winners, labels, and indie artists, using state-of-the-art digital mixing and restoration tools and the very best in analog gear. Really, though, it's my ability to bring tracks to life and fulfill your vision for your music. This has made me sought after by producers and artists worldwide. So spend your time working on music and not chasing a mix down a rabbit hole. Go to timdolbear.com and check out our free one-song mix offer.
Have you ever wondered what it's like to record on a Grammy award-winning album? Have you ever wondered what it's like to play in front of a stadium crowd? Have you ever wondered what it's like to be on a world tour? I'm Jackie Bertoni, and I've played with the who's who in the music industry, and I've toured the world. Come join my world, Behind the Velvet Rope, and get into the groove on Jackie's Groove. Live 2 p.m. Mondays and available 24/7 on jackiesgroove.com.
Hi, I'm Tim Dolbear, the host of Sound Experience on Intertalk Radio. Each week, I talk with top professional audio engineers, producers, musicians, and the manufacturers that make the tools that we use in the studio each and every day. From capturing the perfect take to mastering your final release, and the tools and how the pros use them, we are going to dive deep into their process and learn from their experience. I look forward to you joining us each week on Sound Experience with me, your host, Tim Dolbear.
Hey, it's Catherine from Listen Local Radio. Moe's Guitars has proudly served the San Diego music community since 1975. Specializing in guitars, basses, mandolins, banjos, and ukuleles, they buy, sell, trade, and consign. If you're looking for lessons, repairs, accessories, and cool gear, you found the right place. Located in downtown La Mesa Village, stop by and check out their digs or visit moesguitars.com or their Facebook page. MOZEguitars.com, 619-698-1185.